Who is the fairest of them all? Apparently it isn't Snow White.
Jonah Platt, whose father helped produce the latest Snow White film, had some very harsh words for star Rachel Zegler.
Yeah, totally stable thing for her to be posting, wishing harm upon Trump voters, wishing that we have no peace. And I actually thought she wrote the exact statement, Skylar, that she wanted us to have, like she wished explicit harm.
Disney, the entertainment giant known for its magical blockbusters, finds itself in the middle of an unfolding drama that's less happily ever after and more of a Hollywood nightmare. The live-action remake of the beloved 1937 animated classic Snow White was supposed to be another glittering jewel in Disney's crown. The studio poured an eye-watering budget into the project, reportedly over 270 million currency units, aiming for a box office slam dunk. Instead, the film has become what industry insiders are now calling a staggering financial and reputational catastrophe, with fingers pointing directly at its leading lady, Rachel Zegler.
So how does it feel to join this elite group of Disney princesses? Can you believe it?
No, not at all. It's unbelievable. I mean, I look at that girl and I have no idea what I'm looking at. It's really quite wonderful to be a part of the Disney family, and obviously to join the league of so many wonderful live-action princesses, but also so many that have been depicted in animation as well. This is the flagship animation that made Disney what it is. And
the tale begins with a glimmer of hope. Rachel Zegler, a rising star fresh off her acclaimed performance in West Side Story, was meant to be Disney's next shining princess. A young, talented actress with a Golden Globe win under her belt, her casting as Snow White seemed like a match made in cinematic heaven. But oh, how the tables turned. What was initially an exciting opportunity for Zegler has spiraled into a scandal that has her teetering on the edge of Hollywood's blacklist. As news circulates that Disney executives are reportedly convening closed-door meetings to address the fallout of Snow White's disastrous performance, the whispers have grown louder. Could Rachel Zegler actually be forced to pay back a portion of the film's losses? Yes, you heard that right. Allegations are swirling that Disney is considering unprecedented steps to hold Zegler accountable for what many in the industry are calling one of the biggest box office flops in recent history. But how did we get here? Let's unravel this tangled web.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
From the moment she was cast as Snow White, Zegler's name has been a lightning rod for controversy. While Disney touted her as a fresh face who could lead the charge for a more modern, progressive fairy tale, her public comments quickly became a PR nightmare for the studio. In one now infamous interview, Zegler dismissed the original 1937 Snow White as extremely dated and criticized the classic love story at its core. The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so, Zegler stated with a smirk during a promotional appearance. There's a big focus on her love story, with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah, weird. The remarks were meant to spotlight the remake's attempt to give Snow White more independence and agency, but instead they alienated fans of the original film who saw her comments as dismissive and disrespectful to Walt Disney's legacy.
But it's important to speak about her because Disney picked her to be a princess, right? They're doing all these remakes, and they decided they were going to remake Snow White, and they cast Gal Gadot as the Wicked Witch, and they cast Rachel Zegler as Snow White, and it's been an interesting casting because this woman is extraordinarily woke, as everyone is in Hollywood, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged. Like, you get cast for Snow White.
And then came the viral firestorm. Social media, never one to let a controversial comment slide, erupted almost immediately. Longtime Disney loyalists accused Zegler of mocking the film that pioneered the studio's animation empire. Hashtags like "Not My Snow White" and "Boycott Disney" began trending, with memes rolling out faster than Disney could spin up its PR machine. The backlash wasn't just limited to her comments about the film, though. Soon, her old social media posts began surfacing, adding fuel to the already raging fire. Zegler's Twitter history became a treasure trove for critics. Among the resurfaced gems was a post where she boldly declared, "May Trump supporters and Trump himself never know peace." While her younger fans might have applauded her candor, the sentiment didn't sit well with a large swath of Disney's traditional audience, which includes families across the political spectrum. The timing couldn't have been worse. At a time when Disney was already under scrutiny for what some perceived as its pandering to woke culture, Zegler's remarks became a lightning rod for conservative critics who saw Snow White as yet another example of Hollywood's supposed moral grandstanding.
Long time because it's just been so scandalized. And so they had to basically put it on ice after people were firstly outraged by Rachel Zegler speaking ill about the prior film, the film that she was remaking. Take a listen to her talk about the modern twist that they were going to give Snow White.
But the real tipping point came when Zegler addressed the Israel-Palestine conflict in a tweet that sent Disney executives into full-blown panic mode. In August 2024, shortly after the first trailer for Snow White dropped online, Zegler posted a now infamous follow-up tweet, "And always remember, free Palestine."
Variety breaks down how after this tweet went viral, the studio was shocked that she would mix a promo tweet with a political statement. As a result, Mark Platt flew to New York to speak with her in person.
So the tweet, while a personal political statement, had instant repercussions. Not only did it spark heated debates online, but it also reportedly led to threats being made against Zegler's co-star Gal Gadot, who is Israeli and has long been vocal about her support for her home country. Insiders claim Disney was forced to deploy additional security for Gadot in response to the backlash, a move that added even more costs to an already over-budget production. Behind the scenes, tensions were reportedly boiling over. According to sources, Disney producers and PR teams scrambled to contain the fallout. Mark Platt, one of the film's producers, allegedly flew to New York to hold a face-to-face meeting with Zegler, pleading with her to take down the tweet. She refused. The refusal, insiders say, was the final straw for some Disney executives, who began to view her as a liability rather than an asset. Rumors began circulating that the studio was considering activating morality clauses or PR performance triggers hidden in Zegler's contract to mitigate the damage. As if that weren't enough, Zegler's press tour for the film only deepened the controversy. Instead of smoothing things over, her interviews often came across as tone-deaf, even combative. In one clip that went viral, Zegler defended her decision to speak her mind, saying, "I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online." While some interpreted the comment as a push for fair compensation in the streaming era, others saw it as yet another example of her entitlement. The divide between her and the film's fanbase grew even wider.
You're crying on that stage.
When am I not crying in public? It's so upsetting.
Why were you crying?
Oh my gosh, I saw the well, we didn't even see.
Overwhelming.
We didn't even see,
It's
but I saw the
overwhelming.
logo and I went, that's my name. Snow White's up there, and I cried my eyes out.
By the time Snow White finally hit theaters, the damage was done. The film debuted to a paltry $43 million in domestic earnings during its opening weekend, with global earnings barely crossing $87 million. For a film that cost over $270 million to produce, this was nothing short of a disaster. Critics panned the film for its muddled tone, uninspired CGI, and lack of connection to the original story, but many audience members weren't even willing to give it a chance, citing Zegler's comments as a key reason for their boycott. And here's where things get even messier. Multiple insiders have claimed that Disney has been holding high-level meetings to assess the financial fallout and discuss potential next steps. At one particularly heated meeting, an executive reportedly exclaimed, "She torched a billion-dollar brand in under a year, and we paid her to do it." The idea of demanding financial restitution was allegedly floated, with some suggesting clawing back bonuses, canceling back-end deals, or even taking legal action to invoke morality clauses in her contract. While it's unclear whether these measures will actually be implemented, the very fact that they're being considered speaks volumes about the growing frustration within Disney's ranks.
We're still waiting.
You see yourself as the evil queen. You are not evil. You are not evil. You're a queen, but you're not evil. What was it like seeing yourself as the evil queen for the first time?
We did not see the clip, so I still haven't seen anything. But when I was in makeup, just like she said, we got to work with such an amazing crew, and it was just like the best it could ever be.
Meanwhile, Zegler herself is reportedly in complete shock. Sources close to the actress say she was in tears upon learning about the film's disastrous opening weekend and the mounting criticism aimed at her. She had reportedly believed that the role of Snow White would cement her status as a Hollywood A-lister. Instead, it has left her at the center of a corporate firestorm, with her future in the industry hanging by a thread. The stakes couldn't be higher for Disney either. The studio has invested heavily in its live-action remake strategy, and the failure of Snow White has prompted a broader reevaluation of its approach. Could this be the end of the live-action remake era? Or is it simply a cautionary tale about the dangers of modernizing beloved classics without understanding their core appeal? Only time will tell.
Our next guest made her movie debut as Maria in in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. Now she dumps the sharks for Seven Dwarfs. Disney's Snow White opens in theaters Friday. Please welcome Rachel Zegler.
The fallout from Snow White was far from contained. With Rachel Zegler already at the center of a storm for her controversial comments and public persona, things only escalated further as the film's release sent shockwaves through Hollywood. And while Disney's top brass scrambled to perform damage control, the public and industry insiders alike continued to dissect every move, every word, and every decision that led to this colossal box office failure. But what exactly pushed this film and its leading lady into such treacherous waters? The answer lies in a combination of missteps, misunderstandings, and miscalculations that snowballed into an irreversible disaster. Let's talk about the interviews. Rachel Zegler's promotional tour for Snow White should have been a celebratory lap for the young actress to connect with audiences and generate excitement for the film. Instead, it became a masterclass in how not to handle public relations. In one viral clip, Zegler was seen describing her time working on the film as hard labor, and she quipped, "Standing in a dress for 18 hours makes me wish I had a better contract." Now, was she joking? Maybe. But the internet doesn't do nuance, and that comment was quickly weaponized against her. Critics pounced, accusing her of being ungrateful for a part that many performers would have fought tooth and nail for.
And everything, I feel so lucky that I got to play something that is so far from what I know and what I'm used to, and I super enjoyed every second of it.
Then came what many described as the most damaging moment of all, her dismissive attitude toward the love story at the heart of the original Snow White. She repeatedly referred to the Disney prince as a stalker and insisted that the remake had done away with any romantic elements. "She's not dreaming about true love anymore," Zegler said. "She's dreaming about becoming a leader." Now, here's where it gets tricky. While some praised the modern take for empowering the character, others felt it erased the very essence of what made the original so timeless, a classic fairy tale about love, courage, and overcoming evil. For many fans, it wasn't just a reimagining, it was a rejection of the story they cherished. The backlash was immediate and brutal, with memes and hashtags flooding social media. It was as if the film's narrative had been lost before it even hit theaters, replaced by a cultural tug-of-war over what Snow White should represent.
I never would have imagined that I would get to be Snow White. So truly just for people to see someone who looks like them, someone who represents a dreamer, no matter what they look like or where they come from.
And let's not forget the elephant in the room, the dwarves or the lack thereof. In a move that was meant to avoid perpetuating stereotypes, Disney opted to replace the CGI-created magical creatures. This decision, however well-intentioned, ended up alienating a different group entirely. Critics, including members of the entertainment industry like Peter Dinklage, argued that the move robbed actors with dwarfism of opportunities while simultaneously drawing attention to the very stereotypes Disney was trying to avoid. It was a no-win situation, and the controversy added yet another layer of negativity to a production already mired in bad press. Behind the scenes, things were reportedly just as chaotic. Insiders claimed that the film's troubled production was plagued by delays, including a fire on set and multiple reshoots that ballooned the budget far beyond its original scope. Add to that the challenges of working under strict health protocols and labor strikes, and you had a recipe for disaster. By the time the film wrapped, the overall mood among the cast and crew was said to be more of relief than celebration. And then there was Rachel Zegler's rumored tension with her co-star, Gal Gadot. While Disney has remained tight-lipped about any on-set drama, whispers of a feud began circulating after Zegler's now infamous Free Palestine tweet. As an Israeli actress, Gadot has long been a vocal supporter of her home country, and the stark contrast in their political views reportedly created a palpable divide during promotional events. While neither star has publicly addressed the rumors, their body language during joint appearances, or lack thereof, did little to quell the speculation.
To audition for Snow White, or like, oh, they saw you in West Side Story, they're like, you're Snow White?
West Side Story was kind of nowhere near coming out. We were about like 6 months away from release and no footage had been seen. And I actually got a really glowing recommendation from Steven Spielberg to Mark Webb, who directed Snow White, saying that, and I also got a text from Steven kind of alluding to the fact that I had gotten the part before I had found out.
As the film's release date approached, Disney faced an uphill battle trying to salvage its reputation. The marketing campaign, which should have been a full-throttle effort to drum up excitement, instead felt subdued and cautious. Advanced ticket sales didn't even begin until less than 2 weeks before the premiere, a move that many industry insiders saw as a glaring red flag. And when the premiere finally arrived, it was noticeably scaled back. Red carpet interviews were off the table, and the film's stars were heavily shielded from the press. In a bizarre twist, the European premiere was held not in a major city like London, or Paris, but in a remote castle in Spain, reportedly to avoid further negative press. The whole rollout felt less like a celebration and more like damage control.
Your family's like a bunch of Disney, like crazy Disney people,
Yeah, they
right?
are,
Including
yes.
your dad?
Yes, my mom and dad's wedding song was A Whole New World from Aladdin.
Wow.
I was bred for this.
Would they take you to Disneyland, Disney World? when you were a kid?
I went to Disney World. Truly, like, that was our vacation, our yearly vacation, the four of us, my sister and my parents and I, and they go without us now.
But despite Disney's best efforts, or perhaps because of their overly cautious approach, the release of Snow White was met with even more backlash. The film's opening weekend numbers fell far below expectations, and the reviews were less than kind. Critics lambasted the film's tone, calling it a muddled attempt to modernize a classic without understanding what made the original so beloved. Audience reactions weren't much better. The film was review bombed on platforms like IMDb, with its rating plummeting to one of the lowest in Disney's history. While some of this was undoubtedly the result of coordinated trolling, it was clear that the general public wasn't impressed either. And then, there's the elephant in the room: money. With a production budget that reportedly exceeded 270 million currency units, not including marketing, Snow White was one of Disney's most expensive live-action projects to date. The film's global opening weekend haul of 87 million was a far cry from what was needed to break even, let alone turn a profit. Analysts began crunching the numbers, and the projections weren't pretty. Some estimated that Disney stood to lose over 100 million on the film when all was said and done. For a studio that has long been considered the gold standard of family entertainment, this was a brutal reality check.
Words talk, numbers scream. People are screaming. Disney, get it together. Who is the Disney's customer? You talk about this all the time, Pat.
So, where does this leave Rachel Zegler, the young actress, who once seemed poised to become Disney's next big star, now finds herself at a crossroads? Rumors are swirling that Disney has already severed ties with her, quietly canceling any future projects she was attached to. Meanwhile, industry insiders are speculating whether this controversy has made her untouchable in Hollywood. While some argue that she's being unfairly scapegoated for a failure that was the result of many factors, others believe she's made herself radioactive with her outspoken comments and perceived lack of respect for the legacy of Snow White. And yet, there are those who believe this could be a turning point for Zegler. If she can weather the storm and learn from the experience, she might emerge stronger and more self-aware. After all, Hollywood loves a comeback story. But it won't be easy. To rebuild her career, Zegler will need to carefully navigate the minefield of public opinion, choosing her projects and her words more wisely in the future. As for Disney, the studio is facing its own reckoning. The failure of Snow White has prompted a wave of soul-searching within the company, with some executives reportedly questioning the viability of their live-action remake strategy. While some of these films, like The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast, have been massive hits, others like Dumbo and now Snow White have struggled to connect with audiences. The question now is whether Disney will double down on this approach or pivot toward new, original content.
The film received backlash for various reasons in the lead up to its release. Zegler had called the original Snow White movie dated and weird and said Prince Charming was a stalker.
But for now, the story of Snow White remains unfinished. Will Rachel Zegler find a way to turn this around? Will Disney learn from its mistakes and adapt its strategy? Or is this just the beginning of a larger cultural shift in how audiences engage with entertainment? One thing's for sure, this is a story that won't be forgotten anytime soon. What do you think? Is Rachel Zegler being unfairly targeted, or does she share responsibility for the film's failure? And where does Disney go from here? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more updates on Hollywood's biggest stories.